Representing Wairarapa, Hawke's Bay, East Coast District, head boy from Napier Boys High School, Cameron Price. Year Group 13, a winner of the Elizabeth Dixon Cup for Most Promising Debater last year. Cameron, thank you.
If you're anything like me, you probably believe that only a handful of New Zealanders have won the Victoria Cross. And if you're anything like me, you're wrong. You'll be surprised to learn, as I was, that the number of New Zealand recipients of the Victoria Cross is much more than a handful. It's actually 22. 22 of our men have been awarded for most conspicuous bravery or some daring or preeminent act of valour or self-sacrifice or extreme devotion to duty in the presence of the enemy. 22. And if you're anything like me, you're like more than half of all New Zealanders. So how can this be? How can it be that we're also blissfully unaware of our countrymen's good deeds? Is it our fault? Are we so apathetic that all we know is Sir Charles Upham? We forget about or don't care about the rest? Can we blame our parents, our teachers, our media? Is it their fault for not focusing enough on our military history? Perhaps, but I don't think so. I think we can attribute this lack of knowledge to something much more benign: humility. From the Boer War through to today's conflict in Afghanistan, New Zealand has been faced with difficult questions. Questions about the relationship between war and peace. And our efforts to replace one with the other have posed more questions. Questions about whose side we fight on, if we fight at all. Questions which have often divided this nation. But when we find the answers, there is absolutely no doubt as to what characterises New Zealand soldiers, and that is humility. Where this humility comes from is difficult to say. Perhaps it is born of our humble origins as the poorer cousin of Britain, or from our pacifist stance as the friend, but not ally, of America. Perhaps it comes from, and you have to excuse the pun, New Zealand's tall poppy syndrome. Or perhaps we Kiwis listened when Shakespeare said, "There's nothing so becomes a man as modest stillness and humility." Or when Dwight D. Eisenhower said, "Humility must always be the portion of any man who receives acclaim earned in the blood of his followers and the sacrifices of his friends." But any way you look at it, the humility of our Victoria Cross recipients is a reflection on the medal itself. Introduced on the 29th of February 1856, it is the first British military decoration that does not discriminate against class or rank. No matter how humble your beginnings, everyone has a chance at winning the Victoria Cross, a fact which suits New Zealanders perfectly. After all, the recipe for humble pie must have been written by a New Zealander. Made not of gold or silver, but of gunmetal bronze, the award takes precedence over all other military decorations, in the same way that humility takes precedence over all of the other virtues. And I believe that it is this virtue that is the reason why Corporal Bill Henry Apiata, when asked by reporters, "Are you a hero?" he replied simply by saying, "I'm Willie Apiata." And I believe that it is this humility that is the reason why, upon his return from war, Sir Charles Upham refused to accept the £10,000 raised for him by his community, and instead put it towards a scholarship so that the children of ex-servicemen could attend Canterbury University. And I believe that it is this humility that is why Cyril Bassett VC, the namesake of this competition, brushed off praise for his heroic actions in World War I by saying, "It was just that I was so short that the bullets passed over me." Now these actions certainly amaze me, and it appears that the humility of our Victoria Cross recipients amazed Sir Winston Churchill himself. In the summer of 1941, James Allen Ward, VC, was summoned to 10 Downing Street. You can imagine this shy Kiwi finding it difficult to converse with the greatest orator of his time. Churchill noticed this discomfort and said, "You must feel humble and awkward in my presence." Ward replied with a nod of the head and a muffled, "Yes, sir," to which Churchill quipped, "Then you can imagine how humble and awkward I feel in yours. And so it was that the greatest leader of the 20th century came to recognise our soldiers' humility. Great pity then that some people in the 21st century can't seem to do the same. These young idiots mistake the humility of our heroes as an invitation to be disrespectful. They show their ignorance by assaulting our war veterans, by saluting Nazi swastikas, by stealing our medals, and they make us sick. But there is hope. Most of us, you and I, are disgusted, shocked, dismayed by these actions. And just because we appear to be blasé about the commemoration of war is not to say that we do not value the servicemen and women of this country or the contribution they have made. It's just that we merely show it in more small and more meaningful ways. And that's the culture of New Zealand. We remain humble, even in our recognition of war's place in our society. And I believe that it is this virtue that makes New Zealand so uniquely special. For it is humility that is what separates our soldiers from those from the rest of the world. And I believe that it is humility that is the reason why I so underestimated the number of Victoria Cross recipients that New Zealand has. And if you're anything like me, you won't be making that mistake again.